and here we go. Right. Okay.
Hopefully not too soft.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just to get it right, obviously. Here we go. Right.
Do you know what the numbers are on the tape?
I'd like 2 3/4, 7 3/4, 17.5. That's a good length, 30. Let me just check that out. Bearing in mind we've got no vents in it, I don't want to get it any longer. 30 some, but that's spot on. I'm going to give you a cross W and a cross bottom if I may. I'm going a little different to this because I want to get it quite nice. I like 6 3/4 cross W and cross B. I'd like 7.5. Just drop your arms, Kirby, if you don't mind. Thank you, sir. Let's get rid of that. Pop that there. Right, I'm going to get you to hinge the arm. You've done this before, obviously. And point your fingers. That's it, fantastic. Just like that, please. I'm going to come back, Simon, if I may. I'd like 20.5. Whoops. 20.5, 31 3/4, please. Okay. I'm going to give you, could you put this in a bracket for me? Mm-hmm. Okay. And just put right side, would you? $15. Good. Now then, and in that half back, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. That's good. 8.5 net, please. And if you could put a bracket and then close the brackets for me, if you would. 5 7/8. 30.5. That's great. Let's just pop that around. Let's have you around now. Smashing. Now I'd like you to actually remove the coat. I can help you off. Thank you, Terry. Okay. Okay, here we go. Just relax. Arms to your side, that's it. Natural, that's grand. I'd like 39 MOD, please. Just pop that over there. I must have said this millions of times. This is a coat waist. This is not your trouser waist. I've got 8 seams to come out of here and I've got to make an allowance for it. $36, please. Legs together, please, Kirby. Thank you. Okay. Same thing here. Lots of seams to come off this. Your trouser measures are completely different to the coat. I'd like 41, please. Can you just stand slightly astride? Okay, here we go. And just put that lovely tie down there. Okay, right. I'd like 1 3/8 collar stand. Shoulders as SL minus. That's great. I'd like side my arm, please. I'd like SRB and a nice little sway on it, SRB with a sway on it. And I'm going to go with, let's have you sideways on again. I'm going with medium to long back balance, medium to long back balance. Just one more time around, just let me have a look at you. Yeah, put hollow front shoulders, will you, for me, please? And that's about it for me. And now I'll take over and you do the trousers, Terry, don't you think?
So we do
Yeah, no, I meant now, rather than you take your measures.
Oh, yeah.
You okay with that?
That's yours. Back, thank you.
I know it's yours, otherwise you'll tell me off. I can't, I'll pinch you.
Is that something that a tailor really holds on to, is their tape measure?
Oh yeah, we have a nice sulk when somebody's taken our tape. We lose our temper, don't we? Just a little bit.
I get very grumpy if my tape measure goes down.
Oh, I borrowed it once and I thought I'd lost it. He nearly lynched me.
So for the trouser height, you're going to stick to what we have here. You didn't want it any higher. Got 41.5. If I could ask you please just to hoist your trousers up as far as they'll go, and then just feet slightly apart just for the inseam measure. .31.5. Then your
Kirby, tie up. Just pop your tie. That's great. Just to so that A, it doesn't ladder it, and B, it gives her a true reading. So.
Got
This is the moment of truth.
We're going with straight, with a strap and buckle, so
yeah.
You know, close but not crazy.
33.5, and then feet together, please. Got 39, not too tight, like that.
I think that's good. I'm 41, there's usually 2-inch difference, that's pretty neat.
39, yeah?
Yeah. So I'm going to draft Kirby Allison's casual trouser pattern for his lovely Fox's flannel. So we'll just start with the base construction line that we'll measure off and work from. And this is, I think it's called the college drafting system. There's a fly line system as well, but I think this one is a pretty classic drafting method. Older than John and Terry, miraculously, so pretty established. At this stage, initially, I think it's quite similar with the trouser and the jacket pattern. You have a lot of formula, scales, and sort of set patterns that you do apply, but then, for example, when figuration comes into place, you might adjust some things accordingly, or you might map out the dots later, and you kind of use them as a rough guide. You don't use them religiously. So I guess it's sort of a combination of the calculations and then a little bit of artistry where you use your eye and your judgment to decide what lines you strike down. When you're drafting, you are imagining the customer that you're drafting for, because you could have two customers or two friends that have the same measurements, but maybe one hip is higher than the other, or one prefers a slightly wider knee, or certain things like that, or prominent calves. And so there are little things that you might alter accordingly based on that. So now I've plotted my points, I'm just going to strike off from that, and then you're going to start to see the parts of the trouser pattern take place, take shape. So now I've just calculated the centre line of the trouser. So this is where the crease will be pressed in, and so this is the centre front of the trouser. I'm just going to draw in the fly line here. So we've got 4 English pleats on this trouser. Kirby discussed with Terry will just be written here just for myself when I'm cutting, and then also later on we'll write a note to the tailor and they'll know exactly what to put in. So it's just handy to have from the beginning. Later, once I've finished drafting the top of the trouser, we'll use that and measure off slightly just to get the corresponding pattern for the back of the trouser, which you'll see in a minute. But it's just most of the work is actually done on the front, and then it's sort of slightly traced off. And I guess the varying parts would just be some of the details at the waist on the back, and this sort of seat curve here, because that'll be different because obviously it's for the back and not the front. So we always start our pleats 3.5 inches from the centre front. First pleat will be 1.5 inches, and the second will be just 1 inch. Just measuring out the knee width here and splitting the difference so it's even on both sides, and then again for the bottoms. If somebody had the cuff like Kirby's having, he's having a 2-inch PTU on the casual pair of flannels, I've just written a detail here. It's actually when we use the pattern to cut the cloth out, that's when you'd allow for the turn up. So it's a little bit of a longer hem, just you've got that extra cloth to make that real turn up. This is the point where I said we've mapped out our waist and seat measures, but at this point I won't follow those exactly because then it would be quite silly. It's just a guide just to make sure that you've got enough to start with, and then you can play around with it with the inlay you leave at the fitting stages. So we have, that's the, I guess the beauty of Bespoke, you've got that, you've calculated when you cut the pieces out, little extras in the areas of the garments that we usually end up letting them out, taking them in. So, and these points also allow, just I've got extra here so I should be okay on the fitting. It is very rarely that the points all do add up. When that is, it's very satisfying, but not always. So I'll just do some check measures just to make sure it's all okay. So I'm going to cut this out and then use that to trace off and create the underside of the pattern. So now I'm going to use the top side, the front of the trouser, just to draft off to get the other corresponding pattern piece. So we'll just trace a little bit here. So just the bottoms, the knee, and this line. By doing this, you just make sure that your hem and the top of your trouser actually meet. And you sort of use some points on the top side just to guide where your underside will go, so they do work together, leg. So you'll see subtle variations there, but of course again these are quite small details, very subtle. These are just very personal to the cutter, and I think probably most customers wouldn't notice a thing, but it's just sort of that unique style of working. So this is the part Terry mentioned earlier, a scale that he used for suits. We have a scale for the seat. It's nothing too complicated, but it's just, again, it's just a set formula that we would use, and even then sometimes we go against it because it doesn't look right. I think it's interesting because there are so many wonderful drafting systems and styles of drafting out there, but I think the sort of key part is yes, you can copy a drafting system completely, but just being able to adjust it to a customer or to the fabric or their style. So some customers obviously would want really, really slim fit, and so even if they have the same measurements, you would just sort of neaten the pattern down, and I think that's where the rest of this sort of artistry, or like the cutter's personal taste, comes in, and that's when you'll notice little differences. Pattern drafting is quite formulaic. It's numbers based, you've got formulas, you've got scales, but then sort of scattered throughout you do have those personal elements where you use your creative style or your eye or just your taste or the customer's taste, and they sort of come together, which I think is why it's quite special, because every tailoring house, every cutter within that tailoring house will have their own style, which is quite subtle, but I mean, that's what our customers come for. So I'm just using the top side to mark the rough seat angle here. So just move that out of the way. I don't know if you can see that. Just draw the seat angle in as I did with the top side. Again, this is done more by eye than by measurements. So just go through pencil for you there and see it a bit better. Right, so nearing the end of the underside draft, just again a little check measure. So at this point I'm measuring the waist measure, but we also have to allow for some seams to come off, the underside dart and fullness that we'll put in to help close the pleats. So there's a little bit added on extra here. So then just drawing in the lines here. We have that one. Right, and just draw the underside dart in. Move that over here, strike through, just jot down. So this is the underside, the back of the trouser, and that will correspond with the top side, and that's how they were drafted together really. I'll hold that for you there. But as I said, you've got the crease line in the front that you mark, and then the back will just follow when you're pressing it. Now that both the jacket and trouser pattern are cut, the next stage would be using these card pieces to strike the fabric out, and that's where you would see that we'd add extra inlay, which is special and exclusive to bespoke garments, because that's what allows adjustments at the fitting stage and even beyond that. And then after cutting out all the fabric, we will be bundling up all the trimmings, so canvas, pocketing and lining and all the sort of materials used for components that would be ready for the tailors to start their work.